Right, well, good evening, everyone. Great to see you again. So, we're going to talk about managing projects today. You've got projects and you need to get them fulfilled. My background prior to working with WENTA, as I've said before, was corporate management. So I'm quite used to managing projects, particularly around recruitment. I once got 150 people into a brand new contact centre. I had to arrange everything, write the programmes, arrange the people to do the assessment interviews, the telephone interviews, everything. That was a 3-month project that we delivered actually 3 weeks ahead of schedule. And we only had 6 people we employ not make it through the recruitment process. Now, I would like to say that that's because I'm a fabulous recruiter, and of course I am. But actually, one of the reasons it went so well and we had such a good response was because we had a very tight, well-researched, well-put-together project to get those people in. What we'll be talking about today is effective planning in particular. Scrum is an acronym that you might find useful when you're doing your project. Managing money, obviously, I won't spend a huge amount of time on that because we did talk a lot about that 4 weeks ago, actually a month ago today. Target and goal setting, delegation and time management. So bite-sized things, but some practical elements you might be able to get into. And what I did, has anybody ever mucked about with Wordle? Wordle? I'll check Wordle out on the internet. W-O-R-D-L-E, Wordle. What you do is you copy and paste text into Wordle, you hit a button, and it creates a really nice map of that text. And what it does is the words that are repeated most often, excluding the in, that kind of stuff, are bigger. So I copied and pasted all of this presentation into Wordle, and this is what came out. I did cheat and put Gantt in a few extra times because I wanted that to be bigger. But time, accountability, management, resources, measurement, delegation, communication, these are the ones that came out most regularly within it. It's a great way to actually, and I use it in CVs and covering letters and things like that. I shove it into Wordle and see which letters are coming up the most or words coming up the most. Perhaps I'm using it too much, I'm checking for keywords or something. Those of you who are writing website content, might be an idea to Wordle the content you put on a website because the ones that come out the most should be the keywords that people are putting into Google in the first place, but that is an entire different course. I'd love to deliver that to you guys one day. So these are the kind of things that we're going to be talking about. Before we get started, because this is my last session with you this year, and you'll probably remember this from last year, because I'm pretty sure you were in my courses last year as well, weren't you? Yeah. We're going to have a bit of a game. And we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 people. Okay, what I would like is 3 teams. That would be 2 teams of 4 and 1 team of 5. And we're going to play a little game. You are going to compete against each other in a game of points. Now, I'm going to hand this out in a minute, but what this is what we're going to be doing. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 things you can do. Each of those things has a certain points value to it. You are going to have 8 minutes to accrue as many points as you possibly can on this piece of paper. And there is a prize for the winner, my undying respect. Because unfortunately I can't afford to give you chocolate. You can have an extra sandwich. So I'm going to hand this out in a minute, and I want you guys in a team. So I think we've got a 4 here. That makes sense. You're all there. I think what we've got is a kind of a 4 here. So you 4, and then 5 at the back. 5 might be an advantage, might be a disadvantage. I'm going to give you each a handout with these on because I've got my countdown clock. So in your teams, 8 minutes. Be honest. I will ask you to score yourselves, but on your marks. Get set. Go.
We find what you want to do, so we've got someone doing that, someone doing that.
Good start.
Sign on a piece of paper. Yeah. I can do that. Make a paper.
Each person is taking notes on that. Dragos.
Sorry?
That's unique. Dragos.
Dragos. Okay, let's sing Happy Birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear whoever.
Okay.
Birthday to you. Okay, make a paper. Make a paper airplane and throw it from one end to the other.
I kindly ask you to
Of course, so you've asked so nicely. There we go, I don't mind looking like an idiot. I spent most of my life there. There we go. Oh, there we go.
Oh, you can keep it. What?
Count the number of pets owned by your group. Do you have any pets? How many?
You got any pets?
No.
No, you got pets? No. Just ask her. I've got 2, so at the moment there's only 2. Pets, that's 2. Assign a nickname to each member of the team.
Sparky. Uhuru. Lieutenant Uhuru.
No! You got to have a nickname. You got to throw it across the room, it says. Make a paper plane and throw it from one end of the room.
Bonnie. Bonnie.
Nickname. What can we give you a nickname?
Let's quote the other teams to join us.
What about the exciting things? What about the exciting things? How many points?
No. I always eat Would you like chocolate? Fine, make a list.
Convince a member of another team to join you. That's 20 points.
No, you can't. No.
Names on it, name cards, cut it into 4.
You can claim 10 points then. 2 minutes.
Are we done?
We're joining them.
One minute left.
Piece of paper we did that?
Yep.
I guess
Got all the ones that's marked.
count the number of pets owned by your group, 20
That one
points.
as well.
Well, do you want to add up that side then?
I can't because you've got it over.
Yeah, I did that.
Hey? If you count the points on that side,
Alright, I'll do that.
count the number of pets owned, yeah.
And what is this 5 bonus points if you use a team nickname? So 10.
Yeah.
Make a tower of materials and all. Convince a member.
Yeah, we did. Well, you doing the tower. You did the tower.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop! 5. This team got 130. There is a point to this, would you believe? It's what you've just done in a very small way is manage a project. I gave you a time and a deadline. I gave you things you needed to do and you had to organise them properly. And one of the first things I saw in quite a few groups is sit down and talk about it, communicate with each other. I even saw some negotiation going on, which I thought was quite nice. Didn't come to anything in the end, sadly. You wanted them to join your conga, didn't you? But you know, if you joined the conga, you would have got more points because you could have said, well, it's my conga and I joined theirs, and they could have gone, well, it's my conga and you joined. So 10 points.
Added 10 points.
Did anybody do the mammals? List of mammals?
Yes.
How many did you get?
31.
31. Can you read them out? Because the only thing I was good at school was biology, and I'll know whether it's a mammal or not.
Okay. Dolphin, tiger, lion, monkey, orangutan, cat, dog, bat, man, woman, cow, whale, zebra, antelope, gorilla, fox, wolf, kangaroo, koala, leopard, horse, elephant, donkey, moose, deer, pig, sheep, goat, rabbit, hare.
Excellent. Can I just take one of those off? Because saying man and woman is cheating. That's still 30, because your points haven't changed. What do you got at the back?
Dog, cat, elephant, tiger, lion, zebra, horse, giraffe, monkey, whale, horse, cougar, orangutan, chimpanzee, hippopotamus, polar bear, panther, cow, sheep, goat, rabbit, donkey, pig, hare, walrus, polar bear.
Excellent. Good. They're all fine. And I was right, we had dolphin and whale, so people do know that they're not fish, which is great. And spiders are not insects either, which really irritates me. So what did you do? Did you look at that and divvy it up? Was there any delegation going on? Yeah, you do this, you do that. So naturally doing that. What did you do? Did you go for the ones with lots of small points, the nice small easy ones, or do you go for the big points? How did you prioritise? It was a mix.
Did it in order.
You did it in order, so you just worked through the list. Okay, guys at the back, what did you do?
Mix.
Mix of the two. Now, I'm not going to say, because it is interesting that the team of 6, who really should have got a higher score because there's more of you, and I'm not picking on you, well I am, but got the lowest score. And it goes to show that actually it's not about numbers, it's sometimes about organisation, about prioritisation, etc. So although that was a bit of fun, you were in a very small way managing a project. You had targets, you had deadlines, you had 8 minutes, and you had, 15 things to try and get through. It also gets you up and running around, and I'd imagine it's going to be hilarious because these are on YouTube, you know. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If you really want to watch these courses for an hour and a half on YouTube, you can. I even shared mine. I shared it on Facebook. No one watched it. So the point of that was just to get your thing, have a bit of fun, but also you were managing projects. You were having to delegate, negotiate, etc. So let's get the slides back up again. Oops. Now, so I mean, I've got effective planning. Why do we do it? What's the point? That's a question. It's not rhetorical.
To be efficient.
Efficient? Oh, you've got things I can't spell now. You're gonna. I have 2 disadvantages. I'm left-handed, dyslexic, but there we are. Efficient. What else?
To get it done.
Get it done. Yeah, absolutely. What else?
Prioritize.
Prioritise and time management. Prioritise. Time management. Yeah, although you can't manage time, you can manage yourself.
So you know what you have to do.
Yeah, what to do.
Planning.
Plan.
To set a specific direction towards the achievement of your goal.
Direction. Excellent.
Convincing others.
Sorry?
Convincing others.
Convincing others. Excellent, yeah. We will talk about that. Yeah, so I'm not going to go into any more because we have a slide. Effective planning. It allows processes and projects to run smoothly and efficiently. That's why we do it. Test the viability of the project or the activity. Now, viability is a very big deal. We talked about it 4 weeks ago in the finance course. That just because you're social enterprises, you're not for profit, but at the same time you're not for loss either. So you've still got to make sure that project is viable. It ensures the resources and logistics are accounted for, so you know what you need and you've got what you need, and if it's not there, you can find it. And it creates hierarchy and accountability. Now, some of you may well be working with other people. Now, that might be external contractors, it might be other charities, it might be employees. People need to know who is what in your jigsaw puzzle of a project. They know where to report, they know who to go for various things, and it creates that hierarchy, and you know who's accountable for each of those things, and you can communicate it properly to them. It helps with the management of costs, and it helps ensure the project delivers on expectations. You will have expectations if you have sourced funding as well from external bodies. Now, I work for a social enterprise. We do all sorts of projects where people give us money, but they expect a certain return on that. They expect us to hit targets, service level agreements, key performance indicators. It helps ensure us that we actually deliver on that. And if we're not delivering on it, we can then find ways to make sure that we do. And it dictates how success will be measured. So whatever the success is, and we talked a little bit about that in the finances, yes, there will be, certainly I've got X amount of money and I end up with X amount of money, but at the same time that's social purpose as well. How am I going to measure our social purpose? I mean, that's something my manager is doing at the moment. She was going to come this evening, actually, but unfortunately she's in a strategy meeting until 9 o'clock tonight. She would have preferred to be here. But one of the things she's talking about to our board is how we take our social purpose and put a number around it. So we can actually measure a project that might lose money, but actually where the value comes from the people who help. And then the ones that are more commercial, obviously they're making money up here to cover the losses over here. So that's social purpose. How are you going to measure that as well? And a bad plan is better than no plan at all. And the one thing that I do day in, day out, in fact, the one thing that WENTA does day in, day out, is to take people who are starting in business for the first time, whether it is sole traders, limited companies, or social enterprises and charities, and we take them through that planning process. And I've said before, we start up 100 new businesses a month, and 89% of them are still trading after 12 months. And I say that hopefully is because they get fantastic advice, but the thing is they have been through a planning process, so the ones that do start trading are the ones that are the most likely to succeed anyway, which is why we've got such a high success rate, because they've done all the research that we talked about 6 weeks ago, they've done all the financial planning, which we talked about 4 weeks ago, and they put it into a business plan that says this is how I'm going to run my business and this is how I measure whether I'm actually going to make enough money or not. If I can't make enough money, simple, I don't trade. And we have a lot of people who don't trade, but that's fine, because we don't want them to start and fail. If you're never going to make any money at it, don't bother. You know, that's the thing, is, you know, it's all about the money, sadly. I mean, you guys have got the social purpose, but like I've said before, even a social enterprise needs to at least cover its costs. It cannot run at a loss. Okay, so here's a little acronym to help you out, hopefully. I'm not always a big fan of these things, but it's SCRAM, and it stands for Subject, Cost, Resources, Accountability and Measurement. And I'm going to go through each of these headings and talk about them as we go through. SCRAM. The first thing, this is subject. Now, P&A is shortened for project or activity. And you can plan for the whole of your enterprise, but you'll also be planning, you'll be doing sub-plans as well. So you've got the business plan that says this is what I want to achieve throughout the whole of my enterprise, but there'll be a little plan over here to achieve my marketing. There'll be a plan over here to sort out the logistics. All of these things, there's the big plan and there's the little things that kind of root out of it. So a description of the project or the activity. Describe what it is you're going to do, because that puts it straight in your mind, but also allows you to communicate it to other people. That's one of the things that came up here. Direction. People know the direction they're going and they understand what's happening so they can respond to it more positively. And your desired outcomes. What is it that you want to get out of this activity? If it's a marketing activity, is it about more customers? Is it about increased hits to the website? Is it about getting 40 likes on your Facebook page? Can I just say that the number of likes on your Facebook page really is not a measure of the success of the page. It's actually the number of people who bother to click on stuff and interact with it. So if you've got a Facebook page with more than 30 likes, check out the insights section on it, which will help them. It will give you a huge amount of information, because the insights on Facebook, and I know you've done social, last year I know you had a social media course, last week, those insights are absolutely critical. You have 5 million likes on your page, and if no one actually does anything with it, it's useless. But if you've got 500 likes on your page and people share it all the time, fantastic. So do check out your insights. But what is it? How are you going to measure that? What's the desired income? Why are you doing it in the first place? And why is such a powerful question to ask yourself? In marketing, why on earth would anybody want to have anything to do with my project in the first place? And if you come up with a good reason, you've got something you can market to them about. But what is it? Is it I'm going to help 20 people a week to overcome confidence issues that have been caused from child abuse in the past? You know, I want to see those 20 people, I want to help them. What is the desired outcome? Because once you know what the outcome is, you've got the steps to actually achieve that outcome, and you can measure whether it's viable and achievable. We've also got costs, and I'm sorry to go back to costs, but they are an essential part of any enterprise. So your startup costs, I'm not going to go too in depth with this, because we did this just 4 weeks ago, and you can watch the whole 90 minutes on the internet if you want to. What do I need to buy to be able to start up? Now that could be wages, you might need to employ some staff. I had a lovely guy once who wanted to set up a security firm, and he had a chicken and egg situation. And as much as he had contracts that lasted him 12 months, that actually made his business just viable, he'd break even. The problem is that the security guards wanted to be paid on the night, and the businesses were paying him at the end of the month. So he had no money to pay the security guards, but he couldn't provide the security guards to earn the money. And he had that chicken and egg situation whereby his startup costs, actually despite the viability long term of the business, It completely choked him because he didn't have any money to give to a doorman. And certainly you don't not pay a doorman, because they are, by their definition, very large and probably likely to be upset if you don't pay them. So his business never got off the ground, unfortunately, because due to various situations he couldn't get any startup capital. But what do you need to set up? Understand what that is. We looked at that last time, and then once you know what it is, you can find someone to give it to you. And once you've got that money, the project can start going. And the running costs as well, the day-to-day outcomes, or a day-to-day outlay. So that's going to be staff costs, it's going to be rent, it's going to be insurance, food, materials, petrol, all of those things. What are the things on a day-to-day basis are going to impact on the cost of my project? Because you need to understand them and you need to measure them. And also, is any of you going to use staff? Other people? No? You're not going to employ anybody? Okay. Yes, might do, might do. But staff do come at a price. And even people like volunteers come at a price because you generally give them their expenses, their travel money. Or you might buy them a sandwich or something like that. So be aware of what these costs are to that project activity. Summarise them, get them locked down, and then you know what you need to do to cover those costs. Once you know how much the business costs, you know how hard you have to work to cover the costs. That's something we talked about 4 weeks ago. Right. Super. Now, resources. I hate the term time management. Mainly because I'm a bit rubbish at it myself, but you can't manage time. Time doesn't change. Time is a constant. 1 second is always a second, unless you're travelling at the speed of light. According to Einstein, then time gets a bit wibbly, or wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, according to Doctor Who. Time is something that you don't manage. Time is something you have. You manage yourself within the time that you've got. I don't like the term time management, but it's an accepted terminology. So, what is the time involved in setting up and maintaining that project or activity? Because you guys are studying as well, I suppose, yeah? Absolutely. So you've got to fit your project, your activity, in the cracks between the study you're doing for your degrees, or your masters or PhDs, whatever it is you're managing. So have a look at that time, and you've got to give yourself time. You've got to make sure that you put time aside. And we're talking time management later on this afternoon anyway. What are the materials, the resources you need? Materials, physical things. Things like a computer, camera, flip chart, and pens. Now, whenever I go out, I've got a big box in the boot of my car with all the resources that I need, including projectors and things like that, just in case. I've got the projector in the boot of the car, just in case I turn up to a place where there's no projector. What are the materials I need to run that project or activity, and then make sure that I've accounted for them, that they are there, they are ready, they are in place, and I have planned around them. Is there a physical space? I suppose I could run a training course any way you like, but ideally I want to run a training course in a room that has access to PowerPoint projectors. I don't want necessarily to do it outside. I mean, I have done training courses outside on a very sunny day when I didn't need a projector. That was at a school on one of the really hot days last year, 32 degrees, so we took all the kids outside because it was a horrible room that was air conditioned. But where is the physical space? How much is it going to cost? How long do you get it for? Because you might not be able to have that space all day. We booked this room out for a couple of hours. So you've got to fit what you do within those restraints. And also manpower. And manpower, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't just equate to you. Now, the manpower for this training course the person who's arranged it's obviously Jeff, and it's a lot of Jeff's time. But there is also me, because I've got to come along and deliver it. There is also the camera. There is also the catering. There's manpower involved in the catering. There's also the people who come in and tidy the rooms up. All of these resources are available, and you've got to understand what they are. Who is it that's going to come in and do the catering? Who is it that's going to come and do the filming? Who is it that's going to make sure everything is there? Even if you're doing the project on your own, there are going to be other people in the mix. Even if you're not paying them, there'll be people that you need to relate to. Secretaries of the company where you're going to deliver the training. It might be liaising with the police if you're in a particularly risky area delivering one of your projects. It could be anything like that, youth connections. These are all manpower. Manpower is not restricted to people you pay money to. Manpower is the people who are going to impact on your business and your enterprise, regardless of where they come from, and you need to make sure that they're in place, even if it's an external. It's your responsibility. And one of the hardest is accountability as well. Who is ultimately accountable for your enterprise? And again, not a rhetorical question. Who is ultimately accountable?
Jeff.
Thank you. No. You gestured rather than said. It's you. It's your project, you're accountable for it. But if you have got other people involved in the mix, and you will do, whether they're staff or whether they're external people, they will have their own accountabilities. They're the things that they are actually responsible for. Now, you need to communicate to them what their role's going to be, so they know what they've got to do and when they're going to do it, and also who has that ultimate ownership. Well, it's you. So if they have a problem, they know who to come back to. It's setting up that hierarchy again. Once you understand their role, and this is why I'm glad this came up, it's about direction. If people know the direction they're going in, they will engage. If people are unsure of things because it hasn't been communicated properly, they disengage and they will not hit deadlines. They'll be confused. They might actually give you the wrong product because you haven't communicated effectively what their role is. They might assume something. And do we remember what assume stands for? If you assume something, do you remember that one? I'm sure I did in the first one.
Making an ass.
Yeah, assume. Thank you very much. Makes an ass of you and me. And they'll make an ass of you, actually, because it's your project and you're responsible for it. But if you haven't communicated what you expect from them properly, then they probably won't deliver it, and you'll look a numpty, or might lose some money, or whatever it might be. So, who's accountable and what are they accountable for? And make sure that they understand that very, very specifically, and that they know the communication channels should they need to contact you and make any differences. All right. And measurement. How are you going to measure this? Because you will have targets, you'll have all sorts of things going on here. So, what methods are you going to use to measure them? Where are the milestones? What are the things, what are the checkpoints? What are the bits you're going to get to and say, right, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to consolidate things, I'm going to understand where it is. Now, you want to set some milestones. You don't start at the beginning and finish at the end. You know, when I came to Oxford today from Watford, I started in Watford, then I went to the M25, then I went to the M40, then the A40, then onto London Road, and then into Gypsy Lane, and then I was here. My milestones, because I still have to use the GPS, even though I've been here 6 times now. They're my milestones. All right, there's junction whatever of the M1, there's the M40. Milestone number 1, no, going in the right direction. Milestone number 2, the A40. Milestone number 3, London Road. Or I didn't get stuck in traffic too badly today. Where are the milestones? Where are those key points where you're going to sit back and say, right, where am I now? The things that will take you from A to Z. And it's important that you have those milestones in place. And they will move and they will shift. You'll get to one milestone and suddenly you find out everything is moving around. But your enterprise is not something that will ever follow a straight line. Your business will go all over the place, because that's just the way of the world. No strategy survives contact with the enemy. I can never remember whether that was Nelson or Napoleon, one or other of them. You will plan all you like, but ultimately when you implement that plan, that wonderful thing called Joe Public in the world will get in the way, and you will have to make adjustments. But if you've got those little milestones, if you've got those measurement steps, at least you can take stock, understand the change in direction, and move to accommodate, to adjust, to amend, whatever you need to do. You will not travel in a straight line. No business ever does, unfortunately. Okay, meetings. If you're working with other people, whether that is internal or external, are you going to have to meet with them? How are you going to meet with them? Is it just an email conversation? Is that enough? Some sharing of minutes? Is it a face-to-face meeting where you're going to have an agenda and you're going to minute it and you're going to do that properly? Is it just an informal cup of tea downstairs in the lounge? Find out how you're going to get that feedback and what form they're going to take, and communicate that to people. Because then when they come to that meeting, they are ready with the information that you need, and you are ready with the information that they need. There isn't any muddiness. We don't get the situation where people are assuming things. Make sure you communicate. And communication is one of the key things in any project. There's a great company called Naughty Dog. I don't know if any of you are aware of Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog are a computer games development company responsible for a couple of the best-selling computer games over the last few years, the Uncharted series and The Last of Us for the PlayStation platform. They have 250 employees, but only 3 levels of management. So there's only 3 steps with the 2 guys who own the company and the guys on the coalface and doing all the work. What that allows them to do is to have a very, very clear communication pathway. And they're very efficient as a result, and they produce award-winning games and sell hundreds of, millions of the blooming things. I have worked for large corporates. I worked for Barclaycard for a year, and it's a fantastic company. But oh my God, the hierarchy. If you drew one of those little line graphs of where everyone goes, it would be insane. No one knew where other people were. The accountability was very difficult within that organisation because they put so much complexity in it. And we know what my favourite expression is, don't we? KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't put too many things in your way. Make sure that when you are responding and communicating with people that those lines of communication are clear and focused. And expectations are set, because when you set expectations, it makes it easier for people to deliver on those expectations. And who's responsible for the feedback? Because that might not be you. You might, and we'll talk delegation in a little while, you might delegate that responsibility to someone else. Now, I've recently done a thing with Princess Helena College near Stevenage. It's a very high-end private school. They're doing a drive-through movie night, and we did a day event where they had to come up with an event to raise money, and now they're putting it on. And at the end, I went in for a second day once they decided to do a kind of an organisational event with them. So we had a marketing team and a finance team to check the viability and everything. At the end of that, there were team leaders elected, and we did some personality tests to see whether they were leaders, whether they were managers, etc. And there was one person give the responsibility for all the communication. She wasn't a leader, she wasn't a manager, but my goodness, she was efficient. She was fantastic. So all of the managers fed the information required to one place so she could disseminate it downwards, and all of the other teams working would give the information to her so she could put it upwards, which meant that there was no confusion. Everyone knew who to go to, and everyone knew where that information was held and who was accountable for it. It was a beautifully pure system, and these were a bunch of 16, 17-year-old girls. They're putting on a drive-through movie night in their grounds. It's fantastic. Deadlines. What are they? And funnily enough, communicate them. Right at the beginning, I said you have 8 minutes to answer as many of those as possible. If I said, I'll just get on with it, and 8 minutes in, I said, right, stop now, you probably wouldn't have achieved as much as you did. But I said, you got 8 minutes, and I put a timer up there that was counting down to put you under pressure. I don't know whether you felt that pressure or not, but that's the whole point behind it. I gave you a deadline, and you delivered. In varying degrees, but you delivered. Because I said 8 minutes, away you go. So deadlines are important. Also, communicate them down properly so everyone knows what those deadlines are. There's no point in you knowing what the deadline is when you haven't communicated effectively to someone else. And those deadlines are the small bits that happen between the milestones. And then, how is that information going to be communicated? Have a structure and give people that structure. Say, this is how I've structured the communication channels, this is who's responsible for what, this is how I'm going to communicate this is how I'm going to communicate that. Any questions? Thank you very much, away you go. Because you're going to be managing this and arranging it, and it is up to you to make sure that everyone does. You disseminate, you delegate, and so we're going to talk. Delegation is critical to a successful enterprise. Proper delegation, not task dumping, but we'll have a little chat about it in a while. But that communication structure is pivotal for the success of your enterprise, because it's your baby, and I'd imagine you've put a lot of time and effort into this, have you not? Yeah, because you come here. I know I've been here 3 times, but there have been other courses, have there not? You're doing this out of your own time. You're coming in the evenings, you're showing commitment. to your project. I think it's great that you guys turn up with this. You've had a boot camp. You went away for a weekend, didn't you? Which is quite nice. It's a nice idea. You know, and that was out of your own personal time. So you've shown that kind of commitment. This is your baby. This is something you're passionate about, because if you weren't passionate about it, you wouldn't be here. You'd be sitting with your feet up, watching the telly, watching the 30th anniversary of EastEnders on the telly. Not EastEnders, Neighbours. Neighbours. Madge Bishop was on Chris Evans this morning. I love Neighbours. When I was 13, I can't be bothered with it now. That's when it started, 13. I've just given my age away, haven't I? And SWOT. We talked about SWOT before, the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. I'll just give you a quick reminder, because we're going to move on to some other means to kind of measure stuff. But it's quite a nice place to start, and the reason, like I said, when I mentioned it, I think in the first course, that we use it is because if you want to get funding from a bank, they generally like to see a SWOT analysis in a business plan. It's just one of those things. It doesn't work for everyone, and we talked about my personal views on these things anyway a couple of months ago, 6 weeks ago. But it's very simple, 4 boxes, and we'll see a lot of 4 boxes today. If you're a manager, draw 4 boxes, you'll never put a foot wrong. Everything can be solved in management by drawing 4 boxes on a piece of paper, trust me. SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Strengths and weaknesses, internal. These are the things that you affect. Opportunities and threats, external. Your ability to go external from your business and find opportunities to increase your funds, to increase your presence, and threats are going to be the things that are going to be affecting you. So, set your strengths, overcome your weaknesses, seize your opportunities, eliminate your threats. And I won't do the rubbish joke again this time. I'm not going to bang on about this because I spent 2 hours 4 weeks ago banging on about this, but cash is the single most important element of a business. Your cash position is what indicates the health of your business, the health of your enterprise. You've got to have that nailed shut, otherwise you can't help anyone. So it doesn't matter how brilliant your idea is and how many people you're going to help, if you haven't got the money to actually fund it, it's not going to work. That's a very simple, fundamental fact. So, predictions got to be calculated based on evidence and research. Now, the word assumption is allowed in forecasting, because you will base your forecast on assumptions, but those assumptions will come from evidence and research. And going back and saying, well, my research indicates that I can get X number of people and those people will be worth £10 a head. So X number of people times 10 is my income for that month. So make sure you're basing it on reasonable evidence and research. Those assumptions, that is a technical term. I don't like it because we know what assume makes, but they're based on evidence. At the end of each week or month, you update with the actual figures. Again, we talked far more about this 4 weeks ago. And check the changes the actuals make to the forecast, so you react positively to it. And then finally, discipline yourself to update this regularly. Remember the lady, I don't know if you were here 4 weeks ago, lovely American lady on the course once I said, I was saying, put time aside to do your books. Maybe on a Friday for an hour. And she went, Michael, I'm not going to do an American accent, particularly because I don't want to offend anybody in the room. And she said, but how do I discipline myself to do it? And I went, by disciplining yourself to do it, duh. I can't help you with that, unfortunately. But it is absolutely imperative that you are on top of that money situation. Now, I've said to you before, when we have our staff meetings for WENTA, we're a social enterprise, a not-for-profit organisation as well, but the first thing that's mentioned is our underlying cash position, because that indicates how much help we can give to people, potentially for free. So we try to give as much of certainly our one-to-one business advice for free as we can, because we work with people who are unemployed and we try to get them out of unemployment into self-employment. We don't want to charge them £100 an hour, which is the going rate for an advisory session. We want to give it free. That underlying rich cash position from our more commercial elements means that even when we lose funding, we can continue to help people in the manner that we want to. So, discipline, discipline, discipline. Because you're going to be doing this pretty much on your own. Target and goal setting. Why do it?
You can't be somewhere if you don't know where you're going.
You can't be somewhere if you don't know where you're going. Yeah? Oh, I'm not going to write that up. That's really cool, and I'll remember it and steal it and use in other courses. Yeah, anything else? Target and goal setting. Why? Why do it in the first place?
Measure.
Measurement? Yeah. And that's the important, one of the important ones. Oh. Yeah? Anything else?
Efficiency.
There's efficiency comes up again, yeah. Helps you be efficient because you know where you're getting first, end. Yeah?
Check at all times if you're on track.
Are we on track? Yeah. Seems fairly obvious, doesn't it? But targets are a big part of our life. I mean, you've got targets, you're doing degrees, and I suppose the target is to pass. Hopefully with a first-class honours degree. Wouldn't that be nice? Or you do what I did and get 4 O-levels. The benefits of goal setting allows progress to be measured consistently. And consistency is a big thing. Consistency breeds trust, and trust will breed sales. People don't like inconsistencies. If you're inconsistent, there was a great quote on LinkedIn recently. I love LinkedIn for its quotes. It said that people don't leave companies, they leave managers. And if that manager is inconsistent, people don't know where they're going, they feel uncomfortable and they leave. So it allows you to measure things consistently. It gives you that clear message to communicate. If you say, I need to get 100 of this, then people know you need to get 100 of it. You can communicate clearly. It offers that framework for delivery and accountability. So in terms of delivery of your project, these are the outputs that I expect to achieve, and then you know who to hold accountable if you don't achieve it. Once you've delegated to that kind, so you've got delivery and accountability. You can say to people, I'm going to deliver this, and if you don't, then you can look about the accountability. Where did it go wrong? What needs to be put right for the next time? And when we come into dealing with people, it gives a positive direction. One of the things that people hate is not knowing where they're going in any business. Now, some people, motivation isn't a holistic thing. One thing motivates some people, another thing, one thing I learned as a manager of managing teams of people is that you could come up, I did all sorts of motivational things to increase sales. We had an ugly bug competition, so for every sale people achieved, they got something to build an ugly bug with. And then the directors would judge the ugliest bug and the most creative bug and the most attractive bug that they'd made out of bits of plasticine and stuff, and that person got a cash prize. Now, around about 10 of my 15 team at the time loved it. Half of them went, they couldn't see the point, because we are motivated by different things, but one thing that we are all motivated by is knowing what we need to do. Knowing where we're going, what that journey is, what the destination is. Regardless of how we then engage people through that journey, one of the things that we need is that we go near, right here. And if you as a manager of a project or a leader of a project can't deliver that, that's a problem. So you've got a direction, you've got a place to lead people, you've got a place to take people, whether that is staff, whether that is the people you're interacting with as part of your project. And targets are motivating, provided that they are realistic and based on good evidence and fact. There is nothing worse than an unachievable target. Similarly, there is nothing worse than a really easy target, because you know, I've done it. So targets do need to be challenging, and that is how you motivate people with them. And this is the interesting one. I thought I'd throw this in there simply because I'm a manager of many years' experience and I've had to take people through the performance management process. It's called the disciplinary process by some people. I hate that term. The object is not to discipline people, it's to improve performance. If you have targets for people to achieve and they fail to achieve them, you need to address that. And you address that by helping them reach those targets. You don't do it by sacking them. You do it by going, all right, well, what's the problem? Why can't you achieve it? How can we assist? It could be that the target hasn't been communicated properly and they didn't know how to reach it. But it does become part of this performance management, because regardless of whether you are employing people or whether you have volunteers, their efficiency, their outputs is going to reflect directly on your success. And sometimes that does mean removing people who are not achieving and never will achieve. And the way you can measure that and feed that back to people is by having good targets, so you can illustrate factually what they have not been able to achieve. And hopefully you've been through a process of talking to them about how they can improve that performance, but ultimately you do have to let them go. And it is far, trust me, having sacked 9 people in my managerial career, having solid targets and solid evidence to back that process up makes your position so much, well, easier is not the word, because it's never easy doing things like that. It's not nice, but it means that you're basing it on evidence. There is no emotion attached. You can simply say, I'm very sorry, we need you to achieve this. You haven't. We're going to have to find someone who can. And that is a reality of what some of you guys might have to do. And it's not fun, and it's not happy. Well, actually, a couple of occasions I've sacked people and been really quite pleased about it. Particularly the guys who were caught selling drugs in the car park. That was fine. I was quite happy about them going right underneath the security camera. Oh, there you go. Off they went. But performance management is important. You manage performance. You don't criticise people for underachieving. You help them achieve. But ultimately, if they do not achieve, you have to find someone who can. There is no room for that in your organisations because you are trying to help people and deliver on targets. If someone's getting in the way of that, I'm afraid they have to be removed. And that is a reality of what you guys might have to face going forward, particularly if you've got staff or volunteers or other people who are in the mix. External contractors, if they don't deliver, you've got to ditch them and find someone else. But you need to base that and understand that by having targets and goals. So, here are some methods for setting goals. So we'll talk about some systems for it. You might be familiar with SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, resources, not realistic. That's stupid because if it's achievable, it's realistic. If it's realistic, it's achievable. The reason the R's there is because you didn't want an acronym that went SMAT. But if you put specific, measurable, achievable resources, what resources do I need to make it achievable? And then time scale. The E and the R are evaluate and respond. So once you've been through the process of SMART, at the end of it, evaluate what went right, what went wrong, and then you can respond, go back to the beginning, and start all over again. I've never liked SMART because it's too linear for me, and I'm not a linear thinker. I don't like straight lines, I never have done. It's just not the way my brain works. But I like SMARTer because it gives me a place to go back and start again. So specific, measurable, achievable resources. Have I got the resources to make it achievable? Time scale, and then evaluate and respond. Grow, I've got on a slide in a minute. Grow is a good one. It's actually a coaching model. So it's a good one to use if you've got staff to help them achieve things, but it also can be applied to business as well. And I've got a slide next on that. CIGAR, I've only put it in there because there are millions of these acronyms, and I have come over hundreds of them in my career. I've had EISIB. There's C-SMART, there's various different versions of SMART. CIGAR was what I came across. And I think people just make them up because they want something on their training course that sounds cool. CIGAR is current, ideal, gap, action, result. So where am I now? Where do I want to be? What is the gap between where I am and where I want to be? What actions am I going to do to get there, and what's the result of those actions? It's quite a nice one actually, but considering that we're not allowed to smoke anymore, hardly anywhere, probably cigar's not the best one to go for. But they all follow the same kind of theme. CIGAR isn't massively different to grow. Grow, as we'll come on in a minute, is goal, reality, so current, ideal, objectives and will, or wrap up. They follow the same kind of process. It's about identifying where you are, identifying where you need to be, and what are the steps you're going to take to get there. Now, provided you are applying that methodology to your planning process, it doesn't matter really which of these acronyms you use. Actually make up your own. Why not? You know, go to a course and say, oh yes, I use wibbly-blob, whatever it is, and it stands for something and it helps you get there. I don't really mind, so long as you're doing something. Grow though is quite nice. Goal. What is it you want to achieve? The reality, where are you now? So, this is where I am, this is the ideal. What objectives? How am I going to get myself from the reality to the goal? Where is the reality? And then the wrap up. How are you going to do it, and when are you going to achieve it by? And this is quite a powerful model because it is circular. Because once you've finished one loop, you start back and say, okay, where's the goal? Where do I want to be next? Where's the reality? Where am I now? And you do it. It just goes round and round in circles. That's why I like Grow.
We've got it on the Brooks website, there's on there.
Have you? Good, because this is, I love this. I very rarely like acronyms because generally my brain does not accept them because I don't do stuff like that. I really hate lists and things like, you know, but Grow I've always engaged with because it makes sensible, and it is this part that's important. You play with the reality because your reality is often different to other people's reality. So my favourite example of this is someone comes to me and says, Michael, I want to get fit, help me. Now, I know it doesn't look like it anymore, but in my 20s, I was ridiculously fit. I was in the top 75 in the country at fencing, foil, sword fighting, not putting posts into ground. I was ridiculously fit. I would run 10 miles without batting an eyelid. I would do 2 nights of fencing a week and 2 conditioning events as well to make sure I was properly buff, and I was. And then I got married and got comfy and everything went south. But someone comes to me and says, right, I want to be fit. Now, my idea of fit is that. But they might just want to get to the top of the stairs without running out of breath. Now, if I then start saying to them, right, I'm going to meet them, we're going to the gym for 4 hours and we're going to do all of this, it's going to kill them, or they're not even going to bother showing up. So it's our responsibility to make sure that reality is not just our reality, but everyone else's as well. That we're actually tailoring this to a specific area, a specific reality, that'll make it so much easier to reach the goal. Okay, so now just walk up the stairs once a day. Stop halfway up the first time, and then we build it up. You know, the reality of it is very important. Right, delegation. My father always used to say, delegation is the art of good management. A good manager should be able to do this. All day. This is the best kind of manager because they've got everyone else doing the work for them, and all they need to do is to make sure it gets done. That's a good manager. That's not a lazy person. That's a person who's engaged with their staff properly and has got their talents and their skills working for them. That is, that is a good manager. Delegating responsibility is very important, but the most important thing is it's not task dumping. Don't go, oh, I ain't doing that, he can do it. I don't like him, he smells funny. He can just do that bit over there. I've seen managers do that. Oh, God, that's awful, I hate it. I just dump it on someone else. It is not task dumping. You cannot do everything. You know, this is this guy here. You will be juggling an awful lot of stuff. And there will be things that you're really brilliant at, but there will also be things that you're slightly pants at as well. And it's far better to find someone who is good at it and let them do it than struggle on your own. So you match the skills of the people around you. You find out who's good at what. Like the example I gave earlier on at the school of the one girl who was not a leader, but my goodness, she was efficient. And everyone recognised that in her. So she was given the responsibility of managing the communication throughout this project that they're putting together. And I have no doubt she's doing it brilliantly. You find out what their skills are, and you make sure you give them stuff that complements them skills, because it empowers people. And people, when they feel empowered, they feel engaged, they feel passionate, and they're more likely to achieve. And delegate that down to them. Say, here we go, but we've got to make sure that it's clearly communicated. This is what you have to do. These are my expectations. These are the outputs, the goals, the targets that I expect from you. And this is how I'm going to make sure you achieve them. And that way, that person not only feels great because they're doing something that they enjoy and that they know that they can achieve, but also they've got that clear vision of where they're going and they can get there. Now, we'll talk about managers versus leadership right at the end. And it was quite a cathartic moment in my life when I saw the first explanation of the difference between management and leadership. I'm not a very good manager. I managed people for years, and I kept wondering why. Well, you know, I do all right, but I don't really like it. It's because I'm a leader, not a manager. I was very good at this. I was absolutely excellent at understanding where people fitted in teams. I had quite a natural output to that. That's the person who can do this, that's the person who can do that. I gave them all of that stuff and just, you know, put the information down. I wasn't very good at shuffling paper around. But that motivates people. And I achieved an awful lot in my managerial career, not because I was a brilliant manager, but because my staff knew exactly where they were going. Every single time they were well coached and they were well prepared. And if they were good at something, I gave them something to be good at, and I said, well done, pat on the back. So, clearly communicate those goals. Follow it up regularly, go back to them and say, how are you getting on? Now, you've got to judge this a little bit, because if there are people who just want to get on with it, and if you're over their shoulder every second going, you doing it? How you doing? They will just get annoyed. But there are the people who want you there all the time going, how is it? Are you fine? Are you great? That's a judgment call. You need to understand, and we could do an entire day on that kind of stuff. What I would suggest is perhaps finding on the internet Belbin team types. I don't know whether the university have got access to it, but Belbin team types is a psychometric test which tells you where you fit in a team, the type of team player that you are. And once you understand where you fit, you can start understanding where other people fit. It's great. The Bellman team types and also DISC, D-I-S-C, the DISC personality menu. That is a great, very powerful one as well. And it helps understand where your place is and where your strengths are, but also you can start seeing where your team members might fit if you're going to have to do that. But ultimately, you take responsibility. You cannot delegate in a blame culture. You didn't do it! Well, it's probably because you didn't tell them the right things. Ultimately, you are accountable for that. So you have to manage that process and make sure those people you delegate to know what they're doing and achieve it. But it does bring trust with the people who are working around you. I say not just staff necessarily, but this might be external contractors, etc. And the confidence in you and the discipline in you to let go. I am a tiny bit of a control freak sometimes. I don't like. I got good at giving stuff away, but sometimes think, no, it's my baby, and no one else can have it. Sometimes we do just have to let go of that little baby and let it walk on its own for a little while. And it is, if you're not used to this, the ability to go, right, I'm going to give a part of my my passion project to someone else. That's hard. No, you find great. You go, no, easy, fantastic. Yes, that's great, but not a lot of people have that confidence, particularly when they're as close to something as you guys are going to be.
Excuse me, unless you're employing somebody, I mean, most of us are one-man bands with these enterprises.
You may well be, but that doesn't say you're not going to be working with other people. External contractors, for instance. You know, it might not be a member of staff, it might be that you need to speak to the catering person. You're still delegating stuff to them. You still need, even external contractors, you still need to make sure that they're aware of your expectations all of the time. So it might not be, I mean, we're talking very generally here. Your specific case, maybe it's you and no one else, in which case I'm afraid you're going to have to juggle all of that stuff on your own. Tough. But if you do find that you're involving other people, volunteers, external contractors, even if you're talking to other companies, you are going to delegate some responsibility to them. Now, it could be that you're paying them for that, but you still need to make sure that you're on top of it and that they know what you expect. Because if they don't, they won't deliver it. You know, I've worked with external companies before. I had an overflow contact centre that I managed because we had loads of calls and I had to delegate a load of calls out. Now the thing is that they were an external company, they weren't working for me. In fact, we were paying them. But we had our goals and targets, we had our expectations, and part of my role was to clearly communicate those to them to make sure that our customers got the right kind of response. So I can fully appreciate that some of this might not be relevant to everyone, but that's why we have a generic course.
They say, yes, I'm going to go off and do that, and they don't.
In that case, you find someone who does. It's that simple, particularly contractors. If they don't deliver, you don't have to sack
rely on
them.
volunteers. It's very difficult to get a volunteer in the
I
first
know.
place. And then to get them to actually deliver what they're supposed to be doing is
It's very hard.
very hard.
But ultimately, you still have to deliver. So that's a part of you managing, making sure that your selection process for your volunteers, and selection process again is an entire course on its own, is going to get the people who have the attitude, who have the experience, who have the passion, that you can do that. And that is a difficult process. I'm not saying any of this is easy, unfortunately. But it is down to you as the manager or the leader of this project to make sure they deliver and they don't. Whether they're volunteering their time or not, you have to find someone who does deliver. And I can, for volunteers in particular, if I'm paying someone £20,000, £30,000 a year and they're not delivering, it's easy for me to sack them, that's fine. Someone's volunteering their time, I know that's a little bit more tender, but you have to put your project first. If you don't do that, it won't succeed. So if there is a volunteer who's not managing, you either have to performance manage and say, do you need any more support? We just need a little bit more output. So if they don't deliver, you say, thank you very much for all of the hard work you've done, but we don't really need you anymore, and work on someone else. Yeah, but I know it's tough. It's tough. I'm not saying that this is easy in the slightest, because you have that wonderfully random element of people. Okay, I want to do a very quick exercise in communication before we look at time management. I want a volunteer. Is there a volunteer? Good. Someone's got a big, strong voice.
I'll volunteer.
Come on! Come on! Right. What you have in front of you is a little picture. Okay, don't mention what that picture is for now. So, what's your name?
Sam.
Sam. Hi, Sam. What Sam is going to do is he is going to describe the picture on this piece of paper. However, he is only allowed to describe shapes. So if it was a cake, it isn't, He would not be allowed to say, draw a cake. He would have to say, draw some straight lines parallel to each other, a curved line joining those, whatever it is. So you are not allowed to describe any specific element of the picture outside of the geometric shapes. So you can't say draw a cat, that is not allowed. So what Sam's going to do, he's going to describe that, and what I want you to do is to draw what he's describing. If you played Pictionary or anything like that before, you're probably familiar with this. And it's not the same one as last year, though I think one of you was on this one last year, if you can remember. It was an owl last year, and it was Feed who had to do this, actually. So where you go, Sam. I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
What's the point?
Okay.
The point at the moment.
So you're going to follow the minute hand of a clock, and you're going to start at 2 o'clock, and you're going to go around to 10 o'clock. So like the driving hands, and you're going to go through that clockwise, or if you like. Then I want you to look at the base, say from about 4 o'clock to about 8 o'clock. And I want you to draw the same line, but sitting higher up, not quite at the centre, a bit below that, but the same line, but only from 4 to 6 o'clock. Of the centre now, and I want you to draw 2 circles. One in line with where the 4 o'clock line. So 2 small circles, and they're on above the centre now. One where the line started and one where the line finished. Okay, now what I want you to do is draw a very long line.
A round of applause for Sam. Thank you very much. What about you guys in the room? Did you find that frustrating? Yes.
What do you use?
What's the point, I was asked? What is the point of this? It's about communication. If I said to you, draw that. Draw a man with a top hat on. If I'd shown you that photograph and said, draw it, what would you have had? You'd have had that picture. Has anybody, there's a couple of you got close to it, has anybody got completely the wrong thing? Yeah! I like what Sam was doing with the 4 o'clock and stuff, because that was good direction actually. It's about communication. If you don't communicate clearly, you don't get a clear picture. Delegation is about communication. Draw a man with a hat gets you a drawing of a man with a hat. Okay, well, what you need to do is to put this, it's not going to work. So the point of that is a bit fun, but at the same time, it's about communication. If I'd given Sam the opportunity to say, just describe the picture or to hold it up, you'd all have the same thing. But unfortunately, because the instructions were not clear, and that's no fault of Sam, I put restrictions on him, because the instructions are not clear, you don't get a clear picture. And what you always want when you're planning your enterprise is a clear picture for everyone, because then you end up with the right result. Okay. Time management. Time management and prioritisation is about accuracy of choices. I loved this phrase when I first heard it. Your time is an investment. You don't have a finite resource. Time is going to run out on your project. You invest time into it. You sit down and you plan time. You sit down and you say, what am I going to do today? If you just start doing stuff, you probably end up doing nothing. So take time to plan time, and also schedule time for interruptions. Because if you have 6 hours in a day and you plan 6 hours of activity for that day, you are not going to do it. Because people will come up going, no, I'll pop in for a chat. You right? Do you want a cup of tea? Well, there's a fire bill, or you need a wee. So make sure that when you're scheduling time, you think, okay, I'm going to have to put some time in here for those things that just crop up. So if you've got 6 hours, don't try to do 6 hours of work in a 6 hour time period. You probably won't do it because you will need to eat, you'll need to go to the toilet, people will come and talk to you, things will come up, the phone will ring, an email will ping up, whatever it is. Plan time for interruptions. Put up a do not disturb sign on the door. Don't come in, on pain of death. Because people will come in and chat to you. One of the things we talk about with our startups is the whole idea of working from home. And the thing is, when you tell people you're working from home, they only ever hear one of those words. And it is the word home. And then we'll phone you up and come around for a cup of tea, and they'll do all sorts. There was one young lady who worked in one of our incubators. Our incubators are flexible workspaces, and she could say to her family, I'm going into the office today. And no one phoned her because she was going into the office. So make sure you put that do not disturb sign up, whichever way you're going to do it. Set some expectations for the people around you to say, I do not want to talk to you. And I like this, 20% of your thoughts, conversations and activities produce 80% of your results. And the guy who came up with these, we reference him later on. This is why it's important to prioritise, because actually an awful lot of your time is wasted on things that are redundant because your brain is sifting through things. 20% of our thoughts, conversations and activities produce 80% of the results. This is where it comes down to accuracy of choices. You choose the moments that are going to be most productive. Record thoughts and give them time. I've got a friend of mine who always sleeps with a notepad next to her because she wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning with brilliant ideas. So she writes them down. And you are allowed to say no, which is a word that is often very difficult to say. No, I can't do that right now. I have other things to do. Get used to this word no, because it's about your time, not theirs. If it's absolutely imperative, you do it, but no. Sorry, too busy. Can't help you right now. Can't go out for a pint, got something to do. Say no to people. And eliminate distractions where you can. Go to places where you can concentrate. Now, people find different places easy to concentrate in. I like noise. I concentrate better around noise. I don't like silence. Silence bores me. So I actually work more efficiently when I'm in a group of people making a lot of noise. I think that comes from 15 years of working in massive busy offices. But find out the environment that you're best at and eliminate the things that are going to distract you. So, you know, rather than working at home or in your flat or wherever it might be, where you've got the telly, a pile of washing up waiting for you, people ringing the door, go to Starbucks. It's got free Wi-Fi. Go to McDonald's, it's got free Wi-Fi. Go to a park. My car broke down the other day. I was in the middle of nowhere, but I have 4G on my mobile phone, so I hooked up the internet while I was waiting for the AA, got my laptop out, and I must say I watched YouTube videos, I didn't do any work, but you know, I was there, I was sitting on the corner in the middle of nowhere on a dual carriageway, I had an internet signal, I could do loads of work. So eliminate distractions so your time is best used. You haven't got people robbing you of time. And this is Stephen Covey's time management matrix. I was introduced to this years and years and years ago. And it's well established, some of you may well have come across it before. But we have unimportant, important, urgent, not urgent. So what you do is you have a list of all the things you want to achieve, whether that's today or whether it's a month or whatever. And what you do is you assign them a position within this matrix. So if it is important and urgent, you do it now. That comes at the top of the list. So you move it up and say, this is the thing I have to do now. If it's important, but not urgent, you schedule it and plan it. You say, all right, I'm going to put time aside on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock to do that. Fantastic. You schedule it and plan to do it later on. So if that is important, but not urgent. If it is unimportant, but urgent, see if you can get someone else to do it for you. Delegate it. Say, all right, well, it's urgent, but it's not that important. So perhaps someone else can help me out. And then if it's unimportant and not urgent, you dump it. Because, you know, if it's unimportant and not urgent, why are you wasting your time on it? Get rid of it. Go, no, thank you very much, done. And that's what prioritization is about. It's about that lovely phrase, that accuracy of choices. What you're doing when you are prioritizing is saying that these are the ones that are valuable. These are the ones that deserve my time and attention. That 20% of thoughts, conversations and actions that have 80% of my output, I am doing them first. I will get them done and then out of the way. The rest of it can wait. And I can plan it. I can say, all right, I'll do this then. Because if you just start at the top of the list and work down, you're going to miss something. Or something that needs to be done doesn't get done. And the thing about lists is they never stop. Because every day you'll wake up and there's something else. The number of times I've had to-do lists, and at the end of the day, and I do try to prioritise, at the end of the day, I started with 10 things, and suddenly for some reason I seem to have 12. And you go, how did that happen? I started with 10. But the thing is, you make sure that that list is always being prioritised, so you are concentrating on the key elements of a business all the time. So you're moving forward. You are using your time efficiently and effectively, because it is a finite resource. There's another good thing, Gantt charts. I don't know if you're familiar with Gantt charts. This is a good planning thing, certainly for a long-term project. What you do is, on this side, you put all of the things you need to do. So this is for a concert. So we've got booked musicians, we've got venue, we've got promotion, we've got tickets, we've got concert. And what we do within our matrix, and you can download these from the internet quite easily, and there is a link on one of the slides that will take you to the people who bring up Gantt charts. You can do all sorts of stuff like that. But what we got here is, here's the dates, June 2012, July 2012. So book musicians, I have given myself until the 18th of June to book all the musicians. The first thing I need to do is email the bands. So that is going to happen between the 1st and the 8th. And then I need to review those contacts between the 11th and the 13th. And then I need to negotiate with them between the 12th and the 15th. And then I need to get the venue contract signed there on the 18th. Then as far as the venue is concerned, I've got to find available venues, visit each venue. I've allotted time to each of these things so I can track it. I can see what's available, I can see what I need to do. I've got my milestones, I've got my deadlines. Milestone here, deadlines here. And that means I can efficiently use my time. And it's nice and visual, and it's like, I mean, I like these, but I'm a very visual person, so I do like things like Gantt charts. But it allows you to hold that accountability, it'll let you disseminate information properly, it will let you control your project properly because you know what needs to be done when. You prioritised it, you planned it, you scheduled it, and then hopefully everything should happen as and when it needs to happen. We've also got another tool, and so whether you use these or not is entirely up to you. This is control point identification charts. There's lots of these things, choose the ones you like most. So the control elements, the quality, the cost, the time, and the quantity. So any project will have, you know, what quality do you want to get from it, what is the cost, etc., how much time does it need, and quantity. Then, what's likely to go wrong? This is a contingency planner, if you like. So what can go wrong with the quality of what I'm delivering? Is it the suppliers let me down? What could go wrong with the cost? You know, there's a tax write because we had the budget today. Well, that's fun. I've got to renew all of our finance and bookkeeping slides over the next few days, which means spending an hour and a half on the HMRC's website. I'm not looking forward to that. I might delegate that to someone. Not dump it, delegate it. Cost, time and quantity. What's likely to go wrong? How will I know when it's gone wrong? What indicators, what milestones, what things will tell me when that has gone wrong? And if it does go wrong, what am I going to do about it? Contingency planning. Hopefully, it will not go wrong, but if it does, you've identified the things that could go wrong, and you can then deal with them. You've got a plan in place to say, if it does go wrong, I know how I'm going to resolve it. And that's a good thing to do, particularly if there is, you know, there's a lot of cogs in the, you know, in your machine to say, okay, it's Murphy's Law, isn't it? What can go wrong will go wrong. And the thing is, this allows you to put a plan in place to deal with the things that go wrong, which is very important. But before we finish, I think this is my last slide before we go into my wrap-up. This was quite a cathartic moment for me in my life. I had been a manager for something in the region of 12 years when I saw this. I'd already made the decision that I wanted to move from management into training, which is what I do now. It took me 6 years, but I got there eventually. But this was a thing that made me realise why I didn't like managing people. Because you have to find out whether you're a manager or a leader, and they are very rarely do these skills coexist in the same person. So managers here, they tell, they have process, they administer, they maintain within parameters and constraints, they focus on systems, relies on control of people, they generally have a short range view, they like to ask how and when, eye on the bottom line all the time, they imitate, they accept, and they do things right. Whereas leaders, they sell. They have a vision, they innovate, they develop and break free of constraints. They focus on people, they inspire and motivate, they have a long-term view rather than short-term goals. They ask what and why, and they look at the horizon, not at the bottom line. They create, they challenge, and they do the right thing. There's a very subtle difference between doing things right and doing the right thing. Because doing the right thing doesn't always get the right results. Now you have to understand which of these types of person you are. I am definitely in that column. And when I saw this, it said to me, do you know, this is why I've made the right decision to move away. Because the higher up the tree I got, the less I dealt with people, the more I dealt with process, and I detest that. And it suddenly went, I am making the right decision. This is the right reason. This is why I'm unhappy in what I'm doing, because actually, I'm not very good at this. I'm pretty good at this though. So it helped me, but I mean, it came too late. I'd love to have seen that about 5 years earlier, but you've got to do this because none of these qualities are bad. You need people to manage because you need people who can bring budgets in. You need people who can focus and control. At the same time, you do need the people who can inspire and motivate as well. Managers and leaders are very different people. If you are a leader, you might need to engage with someone who is good at management. If you're a manager, you might need someone out there to do the motivating. Or you might need to learn some new skills. And these skills are learnable. There are things that you can do and understand. So, finishing off, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey, 1932-2012. Be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. So have a vision before you actually begin. So you know where you're going before you actually start planning. Put first things first. Prioritise. Make sure things are important. Think win, win, win. And seek first to understand and then to be understood. I like that. Understand it yourself before you try to make anybody else understand it. Synergize. Bring all of those little threads together into a kind of cohesive whole. All those things, those threads, tie in a nice little bundle and make sure you know where every single one of them leads. Then sharpen the saw. By that mean keep your skills up to date. Keep this little thing up here, as Hercule Poirot would have it, the little grey cells. Keep them up to date. Keep your skills relevant. Keep your skills moving forward. Keep that saw sharp, because then hopefully then will your enterprise and your business be nice and sharp. Right. I have put some slides up with some interesting reading. I know there's a lovely one actually from your very own university. Which is great. I have checked that all these links work. I did remove one that has worked. So these are links that might be useful. There's Team Gantt. So if you're interested in looking at Gantt charts, you can go directly to them. These slides will be available, I believe, on the intranet or whatever it is that you've got as well. And here's some useful reading. I like this one. I didn't bring it with me this time. It's on my bedside table, funnily enough. The the Project Management Pocketbook. Keith Posner and Michael Applegarth have done a lot of really nice, their pockets, the series of pocket-sized things on all sorts of things, with lots of things like the control point and the Gantt charts and stuff in them. This is quite a nice little series of books, actually. I really engage with them because they're very visual and they're very easy to engage with. They're great. But there's some reading for you as well, and those links that might be able to help. And it is, I would like, can you just one last thing to do. If you could get into pairs for me. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 pairs. See if you can get into pairs very quickly. Just stand up on your feet and get into pairs. I want you to do one little activity before we leave. And then we can all go home. Now what I want you to do is for one person to stand with their arm out like this. Okay? A couple of minutes. So one person, the other person is going to, in a moment, apply gentle pressure to that arm and try and push it down. And I want the person who is having their arm pushed down in a very, very loud voice to repeat over and over, lose, 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 lose. Say it now. So push down the same breath, and that person try and push that arm down, push that arm down, push that arm down. Really push it down, don't be weedy. Come on, push it, give it some space. Let's push it down. Lose, 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 come on, lose, 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 lose. Go on. All right, stop. This time, I want you to do the same thing, but I want that person to be yelling as loud as they can, win, 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 and see whether it's easier or not. Are you ready? Go for it now. Win, win, win. Now, push it down. Come on. Try as hard as you can. Win. All right, stop.
I don't know.
I'm not sure that went down quite as well as it did.
You should do it the other way around.
You should be the other way.
Then you'll definitely get it right.
Now, what that proves, hopefully, and I've done it before, and I must say I find it harder to keep my hand up, is that if you're thinking winning thoughts all the time, it goes back to that Stephen Covey slide, the 7 things of effective people. There we go. Think win, win, win. Because if you're thinking that way, you probably will. If you think lose, 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 you're going to lose. I've seen my daughter doing swimming and she does this, win, 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 when she's doing a backstroke. She's not very good at backstroke. And it's an attitudinal thing. The thing about all of this stuff is that there is only one person who can control it, only one person can engage with it, and that's you. If you've got the right attitude to what you're doing, if you've got the right resources and the right information behind you, you will succeed. If you haven't, you won't. But anyway, thank you all very much. Thank you for this evening. And thank you for inviting me back again. And all the best.